Some people, how are you, Mr. Ominoid? Some people think I go on about Nick Greiner being corrupt. Well, here's the facts for you. Ready? Well, let Nelia tell you and Beth. You ready for it? Here it comes. This is why I hate Nick Greiner.
Estimates the cost at $953 million. It's staggering the amount of difference. It just seems as if.
You want to hear that again? You ready for it? Here it comes. This is a cost. The cost that it actually costs them to lay brand new ballast and rails from Alice Springs to Darwin, and then also what it costs the Byron Bay Railway Company to do their 1.5 kilometres, how much it costs them per kilometre. And yet the ARUP report made by the government said it was a lot greater. How could that be so if the tracks have already been laid and the ARUP report is saying it's higher than laying a brand new railway line from Alice Springs to Darwin out in the middle of the desert? The logistics of getting ballast and concrete, everything up there to Central Australia is dearer than restoring a railway line that's already there that they could use to get the stuff there. And like those track machines do, they come along and they service the track. It's already built. It doesn't make sense. Now, what's this? Really listen. I'll turn it up so you really hear it. This is how corrupt our New South Wales governments are. Nationals, Labor, and Liberal have all said the same thing. That's why I suggest you go down and watch this Bring Our Trains Back video. Really go back and watch it.
Railway Action Group, because I want the community to know that we can afford our railway line. There are so many reasons why it's good for our community. And we've been doing the market stalls for years now, and so many people come up and talk about how much they'd like to have the train back. It's really popular.
Ideally, the best part to start out with would be reopening a line between Casino and Lismore, allowing this area of Lismore as a central hub for the area to have transport back by rail.
Now, this is 4 years ago before Rail Trail got their mitts on it.
A company called Elements of BYRON are putting a train on the track at Byron Bay on 3 kilometres of track for $1 million. That works out to about $330,000 per kilometre. And again, we have to ask ourselves, how can the ARUP report be saying that the railway line would cost over $7 million per kilometre when we've got that to compare with? There was a new railway line built between Darwin and Alice Springs. It was 1,420 kilometres and it cost $1,200 million, which works out to $845,000 per kilometre. And it was a brand new railway line that went across several rivers, through inhospitable terrain. There was something like 1,500 culverts. And it cost
1,500 bridges?
So if we
Byron
actually
Bay's only
compare
only got 131.
The Casino to Murwillumbah line would be, if we costed it the same as the Darwin Railway, it would work out to almost $110 million. And if we costed it using the amount that the Elements of BYRON train is costing, which is $330,000 per kilometre, it comes out at $42,900,000. Of course, the ARUP report estimates the cost at $953 million. It's staggering the amount of difference. It just seems as if we've been lied to.
ARUP, sure, they're in the construction business, but not rail construction. I firmly believe that this line could be re-established again for rail services, including some freight, for less than half of that. But a lot of people, when they read the report, fail to read the very front page. And it states on that.
They look, but they don't see.
This report takes into account the particular instructions and requirements of our client It is not intended for and should not be relied upon by any third party, and no responsibility is undertaken to any third party. In other words, it was written under the instructions of the government. Remember what I was saying before about the Board of Commissioners and the political interference? There's a classic example of political interference. There's an example of lobbyists, road lobbyists, trucking lobbyists, paying enormous amounts of funds as donations to get what they want.
Now here comes the Nick
GRIENER
Greiner bit.
Government in 1988 commissioned Booz Allen and Hamilton consultants to prepare a report into New South Wales rail services. On purely economic grounds, the report recommended closing all country passenger services as unprofitable. However, there was a public outcry. After the rail service closed in 2004, the ARUP group was commissioned to do a study on the Tintin-Bar to Ewing's
Look who's on the board of directors,
In
Nick
1992,
Greiner.
Greiner became a board member of Balderstone Road Building Company. Between 1998 and 2010, Balderstone donated over $655,000 to the major parties. Barry O'Farrell appointed Nick Greiner as chairman of Infrastructure New South Wales in May 2011.
Until he found out that there was a conflict of interest. And then he sacked him.
The $862 million contract for the highway upgrade. In September 2011, Transport New South Wales commissioned the ARUP group to do the rail study, which was released in 2013, recommending against rail services purely on economic grounds. In 2013, Nick Greiner resigned from Infrastructure New South Wales after 2 years as chair. The motorway lobby has donated more than $13 million to the major parties over 15 years. These donations have coincided with federal and state governments approving billions of dollars to major road projects built by these companies.
Our politicians are elected to serve the people, not the party and not the lobby groups, and not individual corporations. They are there for you or them. And you've got to make that point clear to your local member.
Hi, my name's Philip and I'm a former New South Wales Rail employee and Queensland Rail employee. I spent the last decade of my railway career on the Casino to Mooloolaba branch line. And I'd just like to say a couple of things about the condition of the line today. Just about all the branch line has 1 in 4 steel sleepers. And in some cases, it's 1 in 3. As we have here, it's like 8 steel sleepers to 1 timber. Most of the branch line has a very good formation of ballast, as you can see here. The track has been heavily ballasted over the last 20 years of its working life.
Very little work needs to be done between Lismore and Casino to re-establish a rail service.
This rail is actually in very good condition. Even though we are standing on a straight piece of track, this rail shows very little signs of wear. As far as World Rail Safety Standards go, this track would be regarded very highly as the condition that it is in today.
Despite the fact that it's got a little bit of rust on it, run a train over the top, it'll be back to shiny metal in no time.
This piece of track, as you can see, is very well tied. It has steel sleepers just about in every one with the odd timber. So at 47 kgs per metre, this today is regarded as modern heavy railway line, which was taking locomotives of up to 110
75 kilos per metre.
Now presently on what was known in railway terms as the racecourse bridge. This bridge has very good timber top, in other words, good transoms. The transoms are the timber work that holds the track together, e.g. they're just a sleeper on a bridge. So really, this track today would support a train in sections.
The bridges is where there is some cost involved. Jeff Clark, the railway engineer from the BYRON train, estimates that if all the bridges need concrete piers, then reinstatement of the line is likely to cost $2 million to $2.5 million per kilometre. At the most, this works out to $325 million for the whole line, which is a third of the ARUP estimate.
It is a credit to those who maintained this line in its latter days before services were ceased. In New South Wales, we have many major regional centres: Bathurst, Dubbo, Tamworth, Armidale, Wagga Wagga, Albury. All these places, all these major regional areas have rail services still going to them, except one, and that is Lismore. So why not re-establish the line back to Lismore?
That's where it all started from.
Starting to roll again for services back up to Wollongbar and even extension on to the Gold Coast. In Queensland, they have the GRIENER Railway, an enormous tourist attraction. Puffin Billy, which I've visited many times, very popular. The Pitchy Richard Railway in South Australia. This line, the Casino to Mooloolaba Rail Corridor, has that potential.
It's actually about the whole of Australia becoming more energy efficient and doing something about climate change.
Many locals in our area would have noticed a dramatic increase in road traffic. And this trend, unfortunately, is set to continue and get even worse. Our councils are struggling to maintain the roads, full of potholes and jagged edges, creating damage to your own vehicles.
The COAG Road Repair Program has explicitly stated that it does not intend to include social costs such as traffic congestion, air pollution, carbon emissions, and road accidents in the pricing reform process.
The Northern Star, one of our local newspapers,
that's dead people,
on the 9th of July 2015, published an article that within a 31-hour period in this area, there were 8 major road accidents, 9 hospitalised, and unfortunately 2 deaths. It's important that this line be reopened to rail services to reduce the amount of accidents and damage done to our roads. I firmly believe in an integrated transport system, and that's what this area desperately needs.
One of the reasons why we believe it's important to bring the railway back into use is because it'll cut carbon emissions hugely. The Deloitte report of 2011 states that Australia is now the most intensive user of road freight in the world, and it has the least energy efficient road passenger transport among members of the International Energy Association. Road travel produces more than 40% more carbon pollution than rail travel for each kilometre travelled by a passenger. A national government report in 2014, The Bottom Line on Energy Efficiency, says rail freight emits 75% less greenhouse gas emissions per tonne of freight moved compared to the road freight transport sector.
Over the years, there have been a number of reports since the line had its services ceased in 2004. Pricewaterhouse and Coopers, their report was favourable for putting rail services back on. A professor from Southern Cross University wrote an article on it too, and his findings were exactly the same: put the trains back.
If we had...
See, this is the whole point, you see. Oh, look what that is. We've got the old rail motor, 1 and 7. And that's going there on the line out there to Lismore. Anyway, that's enough there of me giving you an ear bashing. What do you think? Leave me a comment. Do you think that the railway line should be reopened from Casino through to Coolangatta Airport? Get it built before we all start hitting the highways again? Do you think it should just be reopened irrespective? See, what people don't realise, this government, Gladys brought in a government legislation, blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what? Governments overturn their own legislations, and I can name a couple of bloody legislations that they brought in, and then 5 years later they knocked them on the head, right? Federal and state. So don't give me that bullcrap there's a legislation, because all they have to do is go between the lower house and the upper house and give a vote, and it's gone. Or else it's in. So either way, I'm annoyed. Let's get our trains back on the tracks. What do you reckon? Do you like those interesting facts? Well, I don't like Nick Greiner. And now where is he? The Australian consulate. He's in New York. What a cushy job. Hey? Well, hey, don't they get the good job? But guess who's over there before him? Kim Beazley, a really nice Australian Labor bloke. Now, Nick Griener's over there in New York, the corrupt Liberal, and he's still got his house at Wallara, worth about $3.5 million. Not much. Yeah, go look him up, Nick Griener. Go down to the local in the city when you can. Go look up the electoral roll. You can see his name, Nick Griener, and you'll see his address. And go Google his house and go have a look at it. It's not a little one-bedroom flat. No way, not Nick Griener. See you later. That's where all your money went, your taxpayers' money.